Imagine waking up one morning to headlines claiming U.S. fighter jets were spotted circling Venezuelan waters, and that unmarked military boats had surrounded the coastline under the banner of a counter-narcotics operation. Sounds like the opening scene of a war movie, doesn't it? But this isn't fiction. It's a real-world geopolitical chess match playing out under the radar. For months, the Trump administration quietly escalated its pressure on Venezuela, a nation already torn apart by sanctions, hyperinflation, and political chaos, while the world's attention was fixed elsewhere. The question is, why now? And more importantly, how far was Trump really willing to go? The story begins not with missiles or speeches, but oil. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, a fact that has haunted and fueled its politics for decades. When Nicolás Maduro refused to step down after a disputed election, Washington saw an opportunity. Officially, the Trump administration called it a fight for democracy. Unofficially, critics called it regime change 2.0, an attempt to reshape Latin America's power map and send a warning shot to U.S. rivals like China and Russia, who both backed Maduro. The stage was set for a confrontation that felt both old-fashioned and terrifyingly modern. Trump's approach was unlike his predecessors. Instead of diplomacy, he used economic chokeholds, freezing Venezuelan assets, sanctioning officials, and publicly backing Juan Guaidó as the legitimate president. Then came the military moves: surveillance aircraft, warships in the Caribbean, and rumors of CIA-backed operations. Even seasoned analysts couldn't tell where the line between intimidation and invasion truly was. One former intelligence officer described it as gunboat diplomacy with modern optics. And here's where the suspense deepens. Reports emerged of airstrikes on Venezuelan boats allegedly linked to drug trafficking. But locals claimed these weren't cartel boats at all. Was this counter-narcotics or covert warfare? By mid-2020, the heat was rising, literally and politically. The Trump administration seemed to be surrounding Venezuela with firepower, while media coverage remained surprisingly quiet. Maybe it was the chaos of election year America. Or maybe this operation was designed to stay under the radar until the right moment. Either way, for Venezuelans, it felt like living next to a powder keg. One wrong spark could ignite a regional crisis. And yet, almost nothing was officially acknowledged. No declaration, no war, just shadows moving across the sea. So what was Trump's real endgame? Was it liberation, domination, or simply distraction from chaos back home? In the next part, we'll pull back the curtain, diving into the secret intelligence reports, the global responses, and what might have happened if Trump had won a second term. Because what's coming next might just change how you see U.S. foreign power forever. Before we continue, ask yourself this: if a global superpower can conduct silent operations so close to home, how many other invisible wars are happening right now, beyond the headlines you read every morning?
As whispers turned into reports, and reports into uneasy truths, the world began to realize that something far bigger was happening behind the scenes. A leaked CIA briefing, quietly referenced in major outlets like The Guardian and BBC, painted a picture that felt straight out of a Cold War thriller. Intelligence officers weren't just monitoring Venezuela. They were coordinating with private contractors, former soldiers, and intelligence assets across the Caribbean. Some of these operatives had already been spotted during covert missions in Iraq and Libya. But this time, their orders came from Washington. Their target? Destabilize the Maduro regime, one silent strike at a time. Now, pause for a moment and think, what if this wasn't about Venezuela at all? What if it was a message to the world, to Russia, to China, to every state that dared to challenge American dominance? Trump's team wasn't just waging a regional campaign. They were rehearsing the future of warfare, hybrid conflict. No boots on the ground, no formal declarations, just sanctions, cyber pressure, propaganda, and drones circling invisible borders. It was war without ever admitting one. Meanwhile, Maduro, cornered and defiant, called it an imperial siege. He ordered his navy to shadow every foreign vessel, his air force to prepare for defensive action, and his people to stand against foreign invaders. The streets of Caracas filled with propaganda banners, as ordinary Venezuelans watched American destroyers glowing faintly over the horizon. Inside Washington, the Pentagon remained divided. Some generals saw this as necessary pressure. Others feared one mistake could ignite a humanitarian disaster. The world watched and waited. And then, everything stopped. The airstrikes quieted, the ships retreated, and the media moved on. But why? Analysts believe that Trump's looming re-election campaign forced the operation into silence. The plan wasn't canceled. It was paused. In fact, internal memos leaked later hinted at a Phase 2 that would resume if Trump secured a second term. That never happened. But the playbook, the hybrid warfare strategy, didn't disappear. It was stored, adapted, and today, fragments of that same approach appear in U.S. policy toward Iran, North Korea, and even cyber conflicts with Russia. Here's the haunting truth. Venezuela wasn't just a battleground, it was a blueprint, a warning that modern warfare no longer needs headlines or public approval, only silence, technology, and plausible deniability. So while you were scrolling past news alerts or watching global stock markets shift, an invisible game was being played, piece by piece, across oceans and borders. And the real question now is, who's playing it next? Because if history has taught us anything, it's that silent wars never stay silent forever. Before you leave, think about this. Every major conflict starts with information, not invasion. So if you want to understand tomorrow's wars, you have to see today's patterns, the quiet movements, the sudden policy shifts, the stories hidden between headlines. If you want to dive deeper, watch our next episode, How Modern Wars Are Fought Without Firing a Single Bullet. Subscribe, stay informed, and remember, the world doesn't end in explosions. It changes in whispers.